What is the biggest reason most people don't stick with or ever start their slow living journey? Spoiler, it's not because they don't live in a cabin in the woods. It's actually because they don't know these simple but game changing truths. And I am not going to let you become another statistic. So I am going to share these truths with you today. These are ones that I wish I knew when I started my journey. Hi, my name is Emily. I am a therapist in private practice and a slow living enthusiast. And this is part 4 of the 4-part slow living series that I've created on my channel. Let's jump in. The first truth is that people won't understand. They're not going to understand your way of viewing the world, your way of approaching the world. They're not going to get the whole slow living thing, okay? We live in a society of more. We live in a society of just busyness for busyness sakes, where we feel societal pressures and we feel fear of judgment. And so when you tell people this new approach to life that you have, they're not going to get it at all, like probably at all. And it can be difficult to not have that support from friends, families, coworker, all that. I get it. I was there. But here's the thing. It is not your job to convince them. It is not your job to make them understand. When I started off in this journey and people asked me about slow living, I had a hard time explaining it. I was really at the beginning of my journey and I just couldn't verbalize this new path that I was on. And people questioned it, they didn't get it. And I tried to convince them. I felt like I was shaking them, like, no, I swear, there's a better way of being. Like, hustle culture sucks. Like, this is much better. And it didn't work. And I felt bitter. And that's what happens when we try and convince someone of something that they don't want to listen to or don't want to understand, is that we can feel bitterness. And so you need to see that it is not your job to make them understand or convince them. Okay? Come on this channel, see other people who are on the same journey as you. Speak your heart out to people who do want to listen, but do not try and convince others. Because when we try and convince others, really what we're trying to do is tell them that their way of viewing the world is wrong. And nobody wants to hear that. So when somebody is super indoctrinated into the idea that you have to hustle to make something of yourself, you have to work hard to the detriment of yourself, and you're saying, no, 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 you're wrong, there's a better way, you're questioning their whole identity, their whole way of being, their whole view of society. And so they're going to not want to listen and they're going to want to argue. And that's okay that they view their world that way, but it's not up to you to change their mind. And when you learn this and you let go, you will be able to be much better off on your journey, because you won't feel weighed down by the assumptions and by the critiques of others, because you are aware that the path that you're on is the right path for you. And when I let go of that, trying to convince others, and instead of just focused on sending my message out into the world to people who do want to listen, like you, it's so much better. And now the people around me truly do listen because they want to understand. And so, and that's great. But just know, people are not going to get it. I get it. Other people who are watching this will get it, but others won't. And so stick to your community as much as possible, because we are here, we are mighty, and we're here for you. You're not alone. It just might feel like it sometimes. The next truth is that you are going to fall back into old habits. Yep. I am 99.9% sure that you are going to fall back into old habits. I can say that with a lot of certainty because, it happens to me even now. Habits are long held, right? They are ingrained in us with regards to like how we grew up, our society. And so it's only normal that they are hard things to shift. It's not an overnight thing to change your habit. It's a lot of work. And so what I hope is that when you do fall into old habits, I want you to show yourself some grace and some self-compassion, and also observe it, learn from it. If you're noticing a specific habit come up quite a bit, question why that is. What changes might you have to make in your life? What is this telling you? And for instance, like one thing I find myself falling into is when I get into a flow state, I will just drive through all of the work. I will not stop. If I'm editing a video, even if I don't like editing, if I get into a flow state, I'm not going to want to stop. I'm going to want to work into the night. Not healthy, not something that I want to do. And so I know this about myself. So about 30 minutes to an hour before the end of my day, I will stop editing because I know that the pressure to continue is too great for me, that I need to put a buffer in there. And so I'll do something else that I am able to like put aside fairly easily. So learn from the old habits that are resurfacing, but do not show yourself too much judgment for it. You're not failing, okay? I know sometimes it can feel like we're failing, but you're not. And know that it's only natural for you to resist change. Change is difficult, and there is comfortability in the familiar, even if the familiar doesn't serve you. So recognize that it is going to take time. You are going to fall back into old habits. It is part of the process. You're on the right path. If you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing. I'd love to have you as part of the community. All right. Another huge truth, the biggest one for me, honestly, is that you are going to fall into perfectionistic tendencies. I'm going to make a bold assumption here, okay? I think that many people who seek out slow living tend to be high achievers who are burnt out by society. I'm a high achiever. You might consider yourself an overachiever. I consider myself an overachiever a lot before too. Somebody who has a lot of goals but pushes themselves a bit too far. Now I consider myself a high achiever. And so I am somebody who likes to work hard, who has a lot of goals, who reaches for a lot of big dreams, and that's okay. But I don't let myself hustle to get that. That is when you're going into overachiever territory. I am a high achiever. You can be a high achiever and engage in slow living. And the thing is, though, when you're a high achiever and you are goal oriented, you tend to create visions of a future that seem perfect and ideal. And so you might have this ideal version of slow living that you want to live. And I want to tell you, erase that now. That vision does not serve you. That vision that you see in your head of beautiful baked bread and prairie side living, like the YouTube videos or the Pinterest photos, not serving you. Not serving you one bit. Honestly, probably will cause you more stress than anything else. Instead, you have to look at what slow living will look like in your reality. And it'll be different for you than it is for me, than it is for somebody else. So slow living for me is having slow mornings where I only start seeing clients at 10 a.m. Okay? That seems so simple, but it's so perfect for me. Like, you don't know how good that feels to just have a slow morning and only start seeing people at 10 a.m. It means for me going to take a walk in the middle of the day or going to the gym at 2 p.m. It means having all my energy for my daughter in the evenings. That is slow living to me. It is not a certain way of dressing. It is not a certain way of having my house look. It is not a certain way of talking, right? I'm soft to a point, but I'm a bit much. So you have to know that there is no perfect version of slow living. There's only your version. There's only what is meaningful to you. And that is what you should be aiming for. Not what my version is or anybody else. And we can only achieve these things with slow, gradual changes. It's not like a flip of the switch. I think I've said many times in this video, it's a journey. So you need to take this gradually. And gradually is the most sustainable thing that you can do, because when you change things slowly, they're better able to be anchored in and stay. But if you change everything at once, it becomes overwhelming. And so I challenge you to only change a little bit at a time. Slow living is much more sustainable when you approach it in a very gradual way. When you change little thing by little thing and you adapt slowly and you do something different and then you evaluate how that feels for you. I've tried some things out that were recommended in YouTube videos, for instance, and I was like, nope, not for me. And that's okay. You only find out by experimenting, but you can only truly know what works for you and what doesn't work for you when you actually change things slowly, right? You gradually put the things into action. If you missed part 3 of the 4-part series, I will include it right here. It's all about setting boundaries and saying no, which are super important in slow living, and so I hope you find it helpful. Also, I have a cold, that's why I'm very nasally. Yeah. Okay, bye.